So, Lone Rider here, and I wanted to talk just briefly about the incident with the Covington School kids in Washington, D.C., in particular about the media coverage and its implications. You may remember when this story first broke, what happened was these kids from a Catholic high school were on a field trip to Washington, D.C., and they participated in a march, and then they went to do some sightseeing, and they were waiting for their bus, and they got confronted by several groups of protesters. The first one was the Black Israelites. The second one was a group of Native American protesters, which included a man named Nathan Phillips, who alleged that they ganged up on him, surrounded him, and started mocking him. The media went with this, and the students were immediately denounced as bigots and vile and hateful and all sorts of things. Of course, since then, anybody who's watched more than 30 seconds of the numerous multitudinous videos that were out there at the time has been able to see that actually the opposite happened. It was the protesters that basically confronted the students and tried to pick a fight with them, not the other way around. The funny thing is the media had one job here, one job. Who, what, when, and where. And they fell down on the job. They got all of that wrong. I just wanted to point out that, when you publish something or make a statement, and you do get it so dramatically wrong, when your job is to actually get it right and report the facts, it's potentially an extremely bad thing. It ruins your credibility. It can ruin the reputation of others. It can tilt public perception. It can, depending on how big the issue is, it can change the mood of a country. And I'm not the first person to make this observation. Thomas DeQuincy in 1856 noted the same thing. So I'm going to read a quote from him here that, although it's well over 100 years old, is extremely relevant to the situation here. He wrote, quote, "Most of us perhaps send a little treason or so at odd times through the post office. But publication is another thing. Rash insinuations, judgments of ultra-violence, injurious anecdotes of loose or no authority, and paradoxes sportively maintained in the certainty of a benign construction on the part of the individual correspondent, all of these, when printed, become armed, according to circumstances of time and person, with the power of extensive mischief." Extensive mischief. I think we can all agree that is anybody who's looked into the facts anyway, we can all agree that is the ultimate outcome of the media coverage of the Covington incident. The Covington incident itself essentially wasn't really that newsworthy. Realistically, it should have been maybe a local news story or, covered in a PTA meeting. Somebody picks a fight with a bunch of school kids on a trip and makes an arse out of themselves. Excuse my language. I don't understand why that was a national news story. Of course, because the kids were wearing Trump hats, I guess that sort of made it, because then it became, about Trump and his supporters and whatnot. But, the fact is that the kids actually, if you look at what happened, they didn't do what the media said they did. The media failed miserably to discharge its duty, which isn't just a moral duty, but a contractual one. These guys get paid to do research, look at the facts, and make sure that what they're reporting actually happened. So it's not just a question of they betrayed a public trust. They're actually not even earning their pay. They didn't just betray the trust of the public and the trust of the people who were involved in the incident that they reported on. They betrayed the trust of their editors, their human resources departments, the people who hired them, the people who signed their paychecks. And of course, ultimately, the people who buy the newspapers and turn into the news broadcasts. I would like to think that there'd be some kind of a backlash. People would call for better professional standards among the media, that, rather than just show 30 seconds out of context from a video, you watch the entire video and, maybe try and see if what you're talking about actually happened or not. Because, as we've seen, the result of this kind of misreporting is, well, as Thomas DeQuincy eloquently put it, better than I ever could, extensive mischief. And It's been mischief for these kids. It's led to them being ostracized, being denounced, in some cases receiving threats of physical harm. And it's tilted the narrative in this country in a place where it should never have gone, because basically what the story the media was telling never happened. Right? Yes, these kids were there. Yes, these two groups of protesters were there. But the actions and the way it was portrayed, it was inverted. Right? The media got everything backwards. And not all of them, to be fair. Then there are some people who have issued semi-retractions, I guess. But generally speaking, it seems to be, it's like, oh, well, we jumped on the bandwagon and we got it wrong. So what? Well, the so what in this case, again, is extensive mischief. And it does harm. And it doesn't do any good, right? Nobody benefits from misperceptions, from, as DeQuincy put it, judgments of ultra-violence, rash insinuations, injurious anecdotes of loose or no authority. Nobody benefits when these things are published and they become part of a public record that happens to be false. So, extensive mischief indeed. Lone Rider out.